Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special council meeting of Monday. Sorry, wrong agenda. Monday, May the 2nd. I do wish to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the lands of the Sooke Nation. And item number 3, council, is approval of tonight's agenda, and that is that the agenda for May 2nd, 2022 special meeting be adopted as circulated, please. Moved by Councillor McMath and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any questions at all? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Item 4 is our public question and comment period. However, as we have no members of the public present within chambers tonight, we will move straight on into item 5, which is our reports. And for those viewing the webcast right now, the special meeting was called so that we could continue and complete our deliberations over the 2022 community grant applications. So council did meet last week on Wednesday, April 27th, to hear from all the various applicants and to receive presentations. So I'd like to give our thanks to all of those for the wonderful work that you're doing in our community. And so tonight, the intent would be for council to make final decisions on the funding. So on that note, I was thinking here that we would just go through them one at a time in order. I don't know what other, it's always, what is the best way to approach this? Councillor Beddoes, could you turn on your microphone and let's hear your suggestion?
Sorry, a little more informal than that, but I guess not. Yeah, I thought we're going to pick off some that come out of the COVID fund, I assume, like we did last time. Is that correct? I think we sort of talked about that last time.
Yeah, and my apologies because I missed the presentation meeting, so that is fine with me. Once we kind of have those identified, I know that Councillor Bateman sent information, but I'm just a bit tech challenged tonight.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So why don't we get an update on what is in that fund from our staff?
Sure, absolutely. There's just shy, it's actually just over 2 million. It was 2 million available, and it was just short of that after the capital that was approved for 2022. I had the number on one of my screens here. I can provide it in just a couple minutes here. Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's fine. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. It's, I think after the fire hall renovation, it was like 1.5 million.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Benjamin. Okay, so well, we might as well just go through them in order. Our staff, our deputy corporate officer has created a spreadsheet that just keeps a running tab, so that'll help. And we might as well just go through them. And I know that there's a few conflict, so we'll deal with those as we get through them. We have quorum anyway, so we're good to go. Okay, and Councillor Logan's is 10 minutes away, so we could actually maybe jump, and we may as well start with the one where Councillor Logan's had declared a conflict. And that would make sense. So good call there. So that would be for, let's see here. What number are those? Okay, I'm going through the spreadsheet here that shows them listed in order, starting like number 1, Amber Academy, going all the way through. So I'm just, there it is. So, okay, it's for the Sooke Family Resource Society for Prenatal Services. And so while Councillor Logan's isn't here in the moment, she had already declared a conflict on this previously, so we'll just deliberate in this case. So in this case, it's $7,000 for prenatal program in Sooke. Councillor Bateman.
So we funded this through COVID last year, the prenatal programming. And in last year's report, we had or in the minutes of last year's meeting, the COVID Restart Reserve Fund, there is limited eligibility criteria, but services to vulnerable populations is allowable. So, yeah.
Excellent. So would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I move that we give the full Monty to the Sooke Family Resource Society.
And that would be to be funded from the COVID relief funds?
Yes.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Bateman to fund item 12, Sooke Family Resource Society prenatal in a full amount of $7,000 from the COVID relief fund, and that's been seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Anything to motivate as the mover? Seconder Lajeunesse?
No, I think they provide an essential service and the province should be funding it, but they're not, so we should pick it up.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'm not as quite as, I think we should fund it. I don't have a problem with that, especially from the COVID fund. That's not a difficulty. But I am bothered that the Sooke Family Resource Society is now a line item, that they went through all that trouble, and now we've got 2 items from them again. And, you know, so I think it is a provincial responsibility. I don't mind funding it out of COVID, but I'm really having a lot of trouble that this isn't a municipal problem. This is a provincial problem. And we can go for the COVID this time, but I really speak strongly against it next time if it comes up. So I'll support the motion to fund them.
Thank you. Councillor McMath, any comments? Okay. Follow up.
An
Councillor
after
Beaman?
the fact motivation. And that is, you know, Sooke Family Resource Society entered into a service agreement with us for 2 years at $30,000. And that specifically funds their youth navigator and adult counseling programs. So here, as we learned last week, this prenatal program serves 30% of women who were pregnant last year utilized the service. And I didn't write down the number, but it was pretty remarkable. And these, of course, are individuals in need, lower income. And I agree, this is a download, and yet we got to do something about this.
Yeah, so my follow-up to that is I am in full support of the application, and I totally hear what Councillor Beddoes has raised. So I think there is some follow-up advocacy work that we can do, because part of the problem that we always hear about is that, well, these services are located in the core or in the West Shore and families can go there and access them. Well, that isn't the case. And that is a disservice to our community. It's too far. And that is often the case even with speech therapy, with group physio for little kids. There's many other things, and that's where Sooke Family Resource Society is graciously taking on and trying to fill the gaps as best they can. But we do have an ongoing problem with this constant sort of rhetoric that our folks can go elsewhere to access these services, and they sell out. Having been through this, they're not necessarily abundantly available in the core either. So it's, yeah, anyway, we'll leave it at that. So I will call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So for those viewing, just note that decisions of council are final. So that one is done. Was there a second one for Councillor Logan's? Was that the only? That was it. Okay, so I believe Councillor Logan's has arrived. So we will just pause for a moment. I think we're good with the COVID funds for tonight. We've done something's gone off the rails otherwise. Okay, so we'll sort of go back to the beginning here and begin with the Amber Academy, Youth Fine Arts, and this one was a funding request. Oh, my sheet's upside down here in the amount of $7,000. And okay, go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I make a motion that we fund them for the $7,000 and that it come out of the COVID fund.
Okay, so that's moved by Counselor Beddoes to fund the full 7,000 from COVID relief funds, seconded by Counselor Logans. Any comments to motivate?
Yeah, I think the main thing there is, one is, I just think you're a fantastic organization, but again, it doesn't mean that they get money each and every time. But they lost a lot of the fundraising opportunities, and that's exactly what the COVID should be doing. So I'm all in favor of supplying the 7,000 out of COVID.
Thank you. Counselor Logans, any comments?
No.
Anyone else? Counselor Bateman.
So I'm just setting the benchmark for definition of vulnerable populations. So yes, this program does support families experiencing financial hardship. So that's good. So the other piece I wanted to note is Kelly Dunn did request line item consideration for next year. So how do we approach that?
I think once we clear this motion, maybe what we can do at the end of our deliberations tonight is look for any sort of business arising. And that could be something that could be raised for the next sort of budget cycle. Here's just some outcomes from this grant cycle that we would want the next budget to contemplate. So we could maybe take at the end any sort of business arising. Okay, so I'll call the question on the Amber Academy. All those in favor, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the next up, item 2, capital bike in the amount of $1,425. Go ahead, Counselor.
Yeah, I'll
Bateman.
move that we grant Capital Bike Society $1,425 from the community grant.
Okay, this is for the program at Poyer, and I believe I had asked a
Yes.
question about how it moves through the different school systems, so it's up at Poyer this year. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Counselor Lajeunesse. Okay, anything further, Counselor Bateman as the mover?
No, I would just suggest this too might be a line item. It's interesting, the applicant decided not to come to council last week because he didn't want to use up a lot of gas to drive out here. And getting our grade 4 and 5 students skilled up in terms of navigating our roads is something that I would hope would be an annual process. And here's a point of order question is, we do have this 3-year limit for funding. And just to be clear, we set the clock at 0 in 2020 by canceling the program that year.
I believe that was it, like it reset itself, is that correct? Starting in 2020? That's the first year, was that?
Yes, that was mentioned when I was reviewing the applications that it had come up in 2021, that 2020 was a reset because there was a break. So that was kind of the intention as we were reviewing the applications. I don't know if it was officially made with the resolution, no.
I think it was also part of restructuring the whole policy in the program perhaps, and it was sort of a restart of the program. Okay. Okay, so I'll call the question on, sorry, go ahead, Counselor Beddoes.
Yeah, I went through their financial statement and especially last year's, and most of what they are asking for wages, and it doesn't apply. And I did a total of the non-wages and it came out to $475. So, I mean, how sticky are we on this? And I think it was in one of those addendums.
Well, we have to be consistent. I think from a fairness perspective, it's sort of sticking. Page 40.
I don't have page numbers.
Are we good to, do you need more information or are we good to?
Well, what are we doing? I'm not sure. Are we?
Was
going to
there,
ignore that?
there's a motion on the floor, is there not? Yeah, yes. Can staff clarify? I'm just trying to find the information here and I don't seem to have that application in this package here. So I can't, I'm stuck. I'm limited in what I can.
$740, education manager 320, bike skills coordinator 280, program materials and supplies 230, which I peeled off, equipment maintenance 75, equipment rentals 125, transportation accommodations 240, and that's one we don't do. Advertising outreach 30, insurance 60, and admin 120. This is what they submitted to us last year, so that's correct.
Okay, can you turn on your microphone, Councillor Reagan?
This year's budget is on page 40 for Poirier, and $755 is in operation costs. The rest is in, as Councillor Bettis points out, paid positions.
Okay, so perhaps we could have staff. Can you give us clarity on?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the 2022 budget, it comes back down to if you consider contractors as being wages or not. So I'm seeing $830 to contractors, plus $255 for program materials and supplies, plus $80 for equipment maintenance, $140 for equipment rentals, and $40 for advertising and outreach. And that was a total of $1,345. And there's some additional in-kind expenses, whether or not we count those. So event support $85 and professional services $60. Again, if that's considered wages or not. So I know this has been, I looked back at prior meetings at minutes, and there's been a lot of discussion around consultant contractor wages, if they're considered the wages or not. So it's kind of up to you if you want to consider a consultant as the salaries or not.
Here it is. Okay, well, I'll look then. It's been moved and seconded. Is that correct? Okay. So there's there's a motion on the floor unless anyone would like to amend it.
I'm sorry, I don't know the procedure because to me is we have some bylaws and rules and we're not following them. So I mean, I guess need some direction from the rest of council.
Councillor Lajeunesse.
Can we pick out the items that are not compensation items for contractors and education manager and just fund that amount?
Yeah, we could do that and then write per our policy, we're able to fund these items. And so the funding is to go to these particular items specifically. Yeah.
That's what I.
So in that case, we would need an amendment if you were going to change the amount from what's on the floor right now, which is the full 1425. Or we could just defeat it and start another one. Sometimes that's just a bit easier. Okay. All right, so all those in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimously defeated, so I'm going to look for a new motion, please. We need a calculator.
Yeah, I had 475 on the old one.
So Counselor Bateman, what was your total? Okay,
Can you confirm which expenses you would like to cover and I'll add them up?
okay, Counselor Beddoes, can you, or go ahead with
Yeah,
what's,
I'll use last year's sheet, but it's just different totals: program materials and supplies, equipment maintenance, equipment rentals, advertising outreach, insurance, and administration.
Okay,
Counselor,
In this year's, they have event support, and I don't know what that means.
it's in-kind income, it says. Volunteer time, something by the school, perhaps, it's in kind, so, no. So we'll just get that total and then that'll be what'll be moved by Counselor Beddoes.
the total that I have is $1,130 of eligible expenses.
Read them out again, please.
Sure. I have $255 for program materials and supplies, $80 to equipment maintenance, $140 to equipment rentals, $40 to advertising outreach, $90 to insurance, $395 for operational, and $140 for administration.
I didn't have operational in there, but it's, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I would assume.
Okay, I'll just accept that. I don't,
Sorry,
when they come next year, I'll ask if I'm here.
Counselor Logan says 940.
I didn't think it was
I have 1,130.
Is that, is the difference 395? No. 1140, oh, okay.
Okay, I had-
Doing calculators.
You're right, 1140. I had 385. Yeah,
Okay.
1140 is it.
So 1140 is proposed by Counselor Beddoes on the items listed. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Counselor McMath. And the source would be the Community Grant Fund?
Correct.
Okay. Any comments, Counselor Beddoes or McMath?
No, I think that I appreciate everybody having a look at that. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor McMath, any comment? Anyone from anyone else? Counselor Bateman?
Yeah, just noting that under eligibility criteria, we'll need clarity when this policy is reviewed again, because it states under 1B, community grants may be awarded for any capital or operational expense except for travel costs, salaries, and benefits. So the question of whether a consultant is a salary or not is perhaps needs some clarity. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the next one is the Caravan Stage Society in the amount of $6,800. Counselor Logans?
I can see Councillor Beddoes and I probably both have the same thought, but maybe not. I don't feel comfortable moving this one ahead just because the application was late and I feel that's really disrespectful to the other applications. There was no reason for that. But for me, that kind of takes it out of the game as per our policy.
Okay, I hear that. Any other comments?
Yeah, whether it's out of the game or not, I also did the same sort of look at it according to salaries and commissions and things like that. And all they would qualify was for $3,400 and not $6,000 if we did proceed with it. But we'd have to deal with Councillor Logan's concern first.
Well, what we could do probably first off, because they did submit, it did come through and a presentation was received. So I totally appreciate that. Perhaps the first motion would be something along the lines is council willing to accept the application? And then as the first part, we could discuss whether or not we will accept deliberating on it, knowing that it was late. Councillor Beddoes?
My suggestion is that we do consider them for the lesser amount, but if we run out of money, they're the first to go.
So maybe what we could do is put this, we'll come back to this one.
Sure.
Councillor
I
Lajeunesse.
mean,
I
I don't
mean,
mind,
the other,
I don't mind doing a dollar amount, then if we run out, we come back and have a closer look at that one.
yeah, we could, you know, I appreciate what everyone's saying. I just think as we reopen and we want to get events happening in the community, connect residents to the water, this is a really good one for all of those pieces. Councillor Lajeunesse.
Wasn't last year, this was a casualty of COVID? I'm just wondering if it would qualify then for COVID funding.
It was more that,
Bit of a stretch, but
they couldn't do, I think it's not, it's more they couldn't gather. We couldn't gather and do anything because of COVID. So it was more, that's kind of why the show, and many of the performers are international. So the inability to travel and to move from, because they move from port to port and travel across the border. So in that way, the show production was hampered because of COVID. So yeah, so perhaps we could come back to this one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, just in the essence of moving along through this and knowing that we'll just sort of pause there. We'll get into that later. So the next one is the Choral Evolution Society. Let's see what my issue here is. The Choral Evolution Society for $6,500 and the funding requested for music library and concert lighting. Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we supply $5,000 and that covers those two items that they asked for.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Yes. Seconded by Councillor Bateman, and your source, Councillor Beddoes, would that be the community grant program?
They were asked for 6,500, I believe, did they not? Okay.
Yeah, just,
Oh,
where do
where
you
did it
want-
come from? Sorry. No, I don't think that would come from COVID, so that'd have to come from a grant.
yeah, community grants. So, sorry, $5,000 from community grants?
Correct.
Okay, anything from the seconder?
The actual amount that they wanted their libraries, the music libraries, the song sheets and things, that was $4,500. Motivating. So.
Well, okay, and I think the other pieces was the concert lighting. So it's 5,000, takes them pretty close. So it's moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. 5,000 it was. So the next is EMCS Society. Councillor Bateman, do you want to state your reason for leaving?
Member of the society.
Councillor Bateman is stepping out. So this is a small but big project, actually, when you look at how big the reach is throughout the community, and it's for the book boxes, $500. Councillor Logans is moving the full $500 request, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any discussion? Go ahead. Oh, I don't know. Councillor Beddoes, go ahead.
Again, I added it up and it depends on what you call honorariums. To me, honorariums are paying somebody. It's the same as salaries. And it comes out to $247 is the ask for all the other things that I added up. I'm not sure which one I used last year's or this year's. I don't have a big problem with $500, but again, we do have to be careful that we start tightening up some of our procedures. So I'll support $500.
Okay, thank you. I think the difference here is that if it was for like the wages for someone to do the job, to do something that they always do, right? But in this case, it's one-time honorarium for the 3 different artists. So it's not like it's an ongoing subsidizing the overall operating costs. It's sort of a one-time piece.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Mr. Curry?
Just a note, I've just received a a message from Rachel who's tuning in. She had said that in the past that the difference between consultants and salary was that consultants, or in this case, an honorarium, is not considered to have CRA deductions, so it shouldn't be considered the same as a salary. And that's what she had done historically with the program. So that's kind of gives us a bit of consistency with where to draw the line.
Thank you very much, Mr. Curry. The one thing I liked about this from viewing it is, and when we were in like the Ponds Park corridor where the new dog park is and the Stickleback Trail, is with the dog park there now and the gazebo is going to arrive, like it's really creating a little grove. It's kind of, it's setting placemaking. You know, it's not just a grassy corridor anymore. Like it's actually creating a little neighborhood niche. So it would be kind of neat over time. I know that they're also working with Rotary to have like a book library located there that somehow, maybe in a future project, the artist captured the spirit of the dogs or something there. And it just creates this little sort of hub there. And just to see those sort of elements in different parts of our community that reflect the various nuances and characters about the community, I think would be kind of cool. That's kind of where my mind went with this, but maybe it's also capacity to deliver. So, Ms. Temple?
Just before you call the question, I was hoping to get clarity on where you'd like funding to come from on this one.
This would be a community grant. Yeah. Okay, so on that note, I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that's unanimous. Thank you. If we could please have Councillor Bateman return to the room. Oh, right, he's in the next one too. Okay, he's also in terms of that. Okay. So the next one is the EMCS Society and the youth engagement. And this was the Youth for Youth program, encouraging people between the age of 13 to 29 to meaningfully engage in activities within our region. And it's a $4,100 ask. Any comments from anyone? That's interesting. Okay, so looking for any motions on the Youth Engagement Initiative? Yeah, go ahead.
To staff, just an odd request, 4,100. Where exactly did that come from? I'm trying to find. Again, you know, this is last week's work, and I wrote it down. It's just such an odd number. I'm not sure what. You know, sometimes people ask for something specific, and I can't find anything. Just does anybody know of this 4,100 figure? Like, is it to do a specific task? And the reason I ask is, again, they're very, very heavy on wages. I'm sure we should figure this out.
My challenge here is that when I look at the form where we would see that, like, it's all blank. Are yours blank as well? Like for this one, it's just completely blank. So I have the blank application. And then it goes into I have their balance sheets and their financial pieces. And then certificate of, you know, all the good backup materials and everything, but the actual form that would suggest where the funds are going to are completely blank here.
It's on page 104 of the electronic version.
They're all blank though. Like I have the page, but they're blank. I'm sorry. Uh-oh. Sorry, just for those watching, we have an alarm going off in the building, so we're just trying to turn it off. Just be back in a couple minutes here.
If you turn to page, what I think is 104 or 103, I can't tell because the third number is overlapping another number. Just the budget information. The total expenses are 13,400, and you could subtract backwards. It just seems like this has worked out to be their local budget. So you reduce the coordinator wages, then you reduce the three different coordinator wages, and you still get to 7,500 of what could be eligible expenses.
So the 4,100 is then just to fund a portion of that, because it looks like this is where they have other grants. This is where they have the summer help. They've confirmed that they have the summer job posting, and then some of the other pieces that are in the works. So I think that's just how it breaks down that way.
That's correct. And I
Okay.
think the question had been asked last week as well, what they were doing with these funds. And they had said additional funding to help fund more events year round here. So that was one note I had written on one of their answers.
Yeah, and that makes sense, just to keep up the momentum throughout the school year as well, right? Which would be excellent. It's not just the summertime that our youth would want to participate in activities, right?
yeah.
And just to adapt to the seasons. Okay,
I'll make that motion
So-
for 4,100.
4,100 by Counselor Beddoes, seconded by Counselor Logans. So while Counselor McMath was deactivating our alarm, we continued on with deliberations. Our motion on the floor is to fund the 4,100. We got clarity on what that was, and it would be from the community grant program. Okay, thank you, Counselor Beddoes. Okay, anything from the mover and seconder? Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. So in this case, we can get Counselor Beddoes, or pardon me, Bateman returned to the room, please. Okay, so thank you, Counselor Bateman. So our next item 7 is the Fed Urban Agricultural Society, $3,000 request, increase food security by delivering garden kits to communities within the Greater Victoria region. Counselor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, I have a bit of a problem with this one because they didn't show up to present to us, and I haven't seen or heard any evidence of the money that we gave them last year coming to Sooke. Has anyone else heard of any of their food boxes coming to Sooke, or their garden boxes, whatever?
Counselor Bateman, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I raised this as well last time, that their final report was a bit vague, though Mr. Curry had some numbers, I think. Well, yeah, so here, I'll just read this aloud. This is in 2021. The MyFed program added 16,000 pounds of potential food grown in our community, directly benefited 2,199 people, and engaged 100 volunteers since 2020. Now,
Would that not be for the
I'm
full
confused.
program?
That sounds like the full program.
Go ahead, Counselor Beddoes.
Yes, sorry, Councilor Bateman, but somewhere along the line, I'm not sure where it is, got it written down here that they said 75 of these parcels came to Sooke. And when I do the math, it works out to we're subsidizing each one of those by $40. So that's something to consider, but
So I'll just share here in the report, they said who received them. They said they delivered garden kits to 111 households across Greater Victoria. Those included Victoria, Saanich, Sydney, Brentwood Bay, Colwood, and more. So if we had taken up the lion's share, 75, and then
It's inconsistent.
some of the, it's just not highlighted if we had taken up the lion's share of it. Counselor Logans?
I think the 75 comes from what they plan to do in 2022, because I had that same thought that it was 75, but reading this again, it's the grant will be used to cover hard costs for approximately 75 planters. But it does say for individual household or community partners in Sooke, depending on program registration. So they do say that the 75 is for 2022, but also that it is meant to be for Sooke itself. And it's requesting 3,000 for the planters, the soil, and the seeds.
Okay, so look for a motion, please. Go ahead, Counselor Logans.
Yeah, I'll move that we give them the 3,000.
Sorry, that was 2,000?
The full request was 3,000. Yeah, 3,000 from our community grant funding.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Counselor Bateman is seconding. Okay. To motivate Counselor Logans?
I do have the same questions that the rest of council does, but I do also hope that our next report will be a bit more fulsome in terms of what exactly is coming to Sooke, so that next time they come to us, they provide more detail on how we were able to assist the people in our community with the grant money.
Seconder?
Yeah, it's an excellent program, and I agree it needs to be more Sooke specific when they return next year. Now, I just would, was that motion to come from COVID? Because that's where we funded this last year, was from the COVID, because this program is, again, for vulnerable, lower income citizens.
Okay, would you like to make that amendment?
Could
that
I
it
make
can-
that amendment? Sure. So I'd like to see it funded from the COVID relief fund.
Okay, so the amendment would be to change the source to the COVID relief fund. Is there a seconder for that motion from COVID relief? Counselor Lajeunesse is seconding it to speak. Go ahead, Counselor Bateman. Any more to motivate on it?
No.
Counselor Lajeunesse, any comment? Okay, Counselor Beddoes on the amendment.
Oh, the amendment.
Okay. All those in favor of the, I know, but that's just, I'm just voting on the amendment. Yeah. All those in favor of the amendment from COVID relief? Okay, so amended motion of 3,000 from COVID relief. Now on the main amended motion, Counselor Beddoes.
Yeah, I don't agree with the motion. I think it's too vague, and I would want to have more questions answered. I mean, you see, before they were talking last year, or the last time they did it, there was 100 and something and 75 were, and they're aiming for 75. You know, I don't know. There's just not enough information there for me to make a decision on spending $3,000, even out of the COVID fund. So I'll be not supporting this motion.
Are there comments? For myself, I do think it's an excellent program. However, I don't have the same, I'm of the same mind of Counselor Beddoes in this. They're just looking for information on the impact locally. The presenter was not available and has not followed up and provided anything for our meeting tonight. And the chair or deputy mayor was very clear that the special meeting was called for this evening. So it provided some opportunity just to follow up on it. And just given the amount of detail that went into our last one for a $500 ask and the effort that locally is coming in when we are limited, even though we have the COVID funding, they're not COVID funding, the COVID money there, it's not meant to be a catch-all for everything. So I'm still looking at what is occurring locally. And if there was that, I would review it differently, but it's not here for me. And all I have is what's in front of us tonight. Other comments? Okay.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I would like to have some information on exactly how much of that did come back to Sooke last year. And I haven't seen any evidence.
Okay, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? Counselor Lajeunesse, Counselor McMath, Counselor Beddoes, and the chair, myself, are opposed, so the motion fails. So again, anyone, like, we can do a business arising should you wish to think of something towards at the end. Okay, moving on here is the Harmony Project Sooke. So this is a $7,000 ask, new string class and drumline class. I love the videos that they had. And I believe I saw that information here. Here we go. Councillor Lajeunesse, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll move that we fund the full amount. I think this is an excellent program, and since music is not part of our school curriculum anymore, I think it's important that somebody picks it up, and I'm glad that these people are doing that.
So that's $7,000 and your funding source is community grants. Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor Logan's is seconding. Okay, any comments, Councillor Logan's?
Oops, one could argue this is provincial downloading too, since the province has removed funding for music in our schools, and that's why we don't have it in our schools any longer. And our local, we're not our local, but all school districts are putting music last in their budgets. So when it's not a priority, it becomes a priority for people in the community. So it does end up on our plates. I'm totally happy to support it though.
No, and that is true. So I think it's more, I guess, the funding that goes to the school districts. And that's where they end up, I'm following with interest what's happening in Victoria, where some programs are being slashed. I don't know when music, it was quite some time, because in the time that I've sat here, you sort of learn that music disappeared from our schools a long time ago. Aside from maybe what's offered as an academy program at EMCS, I'm not sure, because they have sort of a bit of a band, but no. Yeah, but very small back in comparison to when I was growing up. I mean, like, band was a big deal, right? It toured and traveled, and it was a big part of our curriculum. So, and it's just great to see how this comes along, and it is to cover off the instruments. And I think what I picked up also was that their ability to perform is what's been hindered by COVID. And then again, through performing, you're able to fundraise and get funding from the audience or through other initiatives, right? So in this case, is the source for this for community grants? Is that correct? I'll ask the
Yes.
mover. Yes, okay. All right, so yes, Councillor Logan's.
This is one that I believe could come out of COVID at the same time, because when they did present, they said that their budget was very impacted by COVID. And I think, oh, don't quote me on this as I say it out loud, they may have been one of the ones. Yeah, so they had a net loss in their budget for 2021. I asked them about that, and it was regarding COVID. So they did have a financial loss for that reason.
Yeah, I could see that because of that exactly. So Councillor Lajeunesse, are you?
I'd be happy to support that
So,
friendly amendment.
okay, so the mover and seconder will deem that as friendly. It's a COVID relief. What I like to, and I know Councillor Logan's attended, was how they tied it in with, doing something on Halloween, the drumline performing. Again, it's a fun event, and COVID or not, it would be something, it'd be nice to see that movie night on Halloween continue into the future, because not everyone is trick or treating, right? There needs to be other activities. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I'll just note that I had asked about where that funding for the Halloween concert was indicated in their income statement for last year, and they came back very promptly and let us know that it was under miscellaneous revenue. Okay. So that's good.
Councillor Beddoes?
I don't have any problem coming out of the COVID fund. I am a little leery. If it wasn't coming out of the COVID fund, I would only ask for 4,000 to pay for the instruments that they asked for. But if it is coming out of the COVID fund and the rough goal they had, I will support the 7. But if it wasn't the COVID fund, I would only support 4. Doesn't matter. Thanks.
Excellent. I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. So the next one is KidSport Greater Victoria. This one, I seem to recall that some additional information came in to us. It was a statement from last year, okay? So their ask this year is $7,000 and it's for sport registration funding for local Sooke families. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'd like to move that we give 7,000 from the COVID relief fund. Since this too is.
Okay, let's get
Oh,
a seconder.
yeah.
Seconder for the motion.
Oops.
I'll second it. I'll second for discussion purposes. Go ahead, Councillor Damon.
Well, I note that if I can find that letter, the one employee of the organization, which is tied to Sport BC, she wrote back to Mr. Curry based on questions we raised last week. She states that roughly 7.5% of total number of applicants live in Sooke. These are all children, again, of its means tested, so lower income. Through the first 3 months or 4 months of this year, January to April, they provided $9,117 to Sooke families. They did not receive any funding last year or in 2020, of course, from us. And the organizations that are supported through this include Sooke Minor Hockey, Sooke Boxing Club, Sooke Minor Fastball, Sooke Soccer Club, Sooke Karate, Sooke Skating Club, Sooke Sailing Association. And they also, at EMCS, there's funding for cheerleading, football, and hockey and soccer academies. So it's a pretty intrinsic part of a compassionate community to support this organization. Ultimately, perhaps with line funding one day.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further to add. Councillor Logans?
One of the expenses listed on their budget information ask on page 196 is that so all kids can play sport registration grants. And so I'm guessing those are grants they're giving out to others in the community, which is all good, but that takes $31,000 out of the budget that we would support. And that's, more than half their budget. So I kind of wonder, do they have to give out all those grants or what's the balance there? I think we need a bit more information on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I have a few problems with this one as well. I have written down that I'd like to support them for 5,000. The reason being is I use that figure that Councillor Bateman said of to date, they are sponsoring 9,000, and I think it's very important. But if we're given 7,000, then KidSport is only really supporting him for 2,000. The district is Sooke supporting him for 7. I know it's only a short, not the whole year. I understand that. I just think it's a bit much to ask. I would be much more comfortable with supporting them with $5,000.
Any comment? Yeah.
Just, that's logical and good as well. Just to note regarding Councillor Logan's comment there, to eliminate indirect funding, a grant will not be issued to an organization that in turn issues grants to other organizations. So this organization issues grants to families who must apply as a family on behalf of their child, and based on BC low income rates. That's how they determine whether they're eligible or not. Government of Canada low income guidelines. So I think it's within the guidelines of this policy.
Thank you for that clarity. No, I'm fine to support this. So I'll call a question. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, I need to do that again because I'm not seeing, I'm confused on who's doing what here. So can we do this again, please, with clarity? All those in favor? All those opposed? Counselor Logans and McMath are opposed, so the motion carries. Okay. Good question. I don't remember. Yes. COVID fund.
Yes, from COVID.
Counselor Bateman had a point of order.
Yeah, and just to be clear, at the end of our deliberations here, we will look at all the numbers and they are malleable as we,
Well, we're making resolutions. We're
Right.
voting on them, so they're done,
okay, good.
right? Like it's done. It's not like if we were tabling them all, that would be different, but we're not. So we're voting. Counselor Lajeunesse?
Yeah, just an update. I have a spreadsheet going here as well. And
Well,
we're-
there's
we're-
also one in front of us that's
Okay.
also, so let's just stick to, let's stick to
Okay.
the one sheet, please, because
Hmm,
that's what we're all viewing I'd rather just view what we're all viewing together. Okay. Hopefully they match, but we'll continue on. Okay, so the next one is Sooke Boxing Club in the amount of $7,000, funding for mobile boxing and training ring. So this is, Counselor Logans has moved the full $7,000 from community grants. And seconded by Counselor Lajeunesse. Counselor Logans wish to speak to it?
I always thought this was a great organization, but for them to be bringing in local sport tour, or not local, international sport tourism to our community, and also giving an opportunity for our youth and community women to travel and participate in sport, I think it's a fantastic cause, and I'm happy to move the motion.
Excellent. Counselor Lajeunesse?
yeah, I agree with that. I think the service that they provide to these kids and young women is priceless, and the fact that they're bringing ECDEV to Sooke is something that I'm very much in favor of. So yeah, I'll support this 100%.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. I think this is a solid application. It really is clear exactly where the funding is going to go. So I think it's something, like the district could probably put its logo on, like to do X sort of, because we know exactly where it's going. And exactly what you say, and not only the local opportunity, but for other women and girls that are traveling to have an opportunity. And just hearing a little of the highlights of the Mexico City and just how the traveling group also inspired the locals there. It's just excellent work coming out of here. So, well done for sure. So look forward to that. And we've seen different stories in the Mirror or other publications, just sort of rising stars, and I think that's great. Counselor Beddoes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how much I was impressed by that presentation. That I can't remember her name now, but she was just superb. It hit all the right notes. So more than happy to support 7,000.
Excellent. So I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. So the next up is the Sooke Fall Fair, $2,000, funds for new event software and a laptop. Okay, everyone's moving in. So for our wonderful 100 years plus. So that is a $2,000 funding from where source? COVID funds. Okay, so that is moved by Counselor Bateman, seconded by Beddoes. How about that? Good teams. Good teams by the Bees. Very straightforward application. So I'll call the question. All in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Sooke Festival Society, heading to number 13, has an ask of 3,000, an art festival. Let's find it here. Yeah, I'm running into the same, okay, no, I'm in the wrong one here.
I'll move that this $3,000 to Sooke Festival Society from the community grant.
Okay, 3,000 from community grants from Counselor Bateman and seconded by Counselor Lajeunesse, I heard. From the community grants. Oh, and I was gonna ask the dates. Excellent. September 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, so 3 days. So they're growing, which is also great because it started, I think, as 1 day, going to 2 days, and then continuing to grow. And they do just an excellent job. I was in the dunk tank one year. I don't know if I recommend that to anyone, no. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of you do it once and
It's cold.
yeah, and then we'll leave it at that. Enjoy the other elements of the festival. I've been in jail too. It's all for good fun though, not for anything else.
That Peter and the society have developed a relationship with Canadian Heritage, right? Where they're getting significant funding on a ongoing annual basis. So good for the district to support it. And 80% of the entertainers are from Sooke. He told us, yes.
Well, I think it's great just to have our local talent highlighted, all the vendors and the like, and it just shows that receiving that constant funding from Heritage Canada that gives them the continuity is helping them grow and build. So that's excellent. Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Okay, so the next one is item 14. The Sooke Shelter Society has an ask for $7,000. Outreach services for homelessness, poverty, mental health, and addictions. Councillor Logans is moving. 7,000 from the source.
Open to suggestions, but I'll say COVID.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Bateman. So that sounds like it hit the mark there, Councillor. And that is part of what we're learning through COVID, actually, and our experience through this whole pandemic and what folks are struggling with, and also what organizations are really rising to the challenge here. So again, it helps to address the local need on the ground. Any comments from anyone? Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. 15, Sooke Tennis and Pickleball Society, or sorry, not society, just Sooke Tennis and Pickleball. In the amount of $6,000. And this here was for courtside seating, landscaping, and equipment. And they mentioned some like a notice board and such. Oh, I hear, go ahead, staff.
Just a note that they had mentioned in their presentation that they only required $4,800.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. Yes, I made a note of that, but I didn't read my own language here. Councillor Lajeunesse is making a motion.
Yeah,
I thought that's,
yeah. I'll move that we fund the 4,800 from the grant.
4,800 from grants, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Comments, Councillor Lajeunesse?
No, I love what they've done so far, and I want them to continue doing as they are.
Councillor Bateman?
Well said.
I like how they, I just saw this here. It was, oh, I lost it. It was the color of the blue. What did they say? Malibu blue, did they say? I just missed it. I saw it in here and I thought, oh, that's excellent because I really like the color they picked. Oh, it's gonna bug me. Anyway, they've done a fantastic job there rejuvenating the site. And again, it's another one where they're so vibrant there now in this area during the day and into the evening. Like, it's just fantastic. So it is one of those things like when I mentioned with the book bins and sort of the placemaking element with all the different sort of, it would be neat just to see down the road how we could work with the community association. Like, I know sort of after the road connector is done, but what sort of elements could be added just to sort of create that place. And then it again creates this real little niche in the community. So it's just top notch. I really got to find out what the name of that paint is. It's going to bug me, but it's a great color. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I just like to comment that this is a group I've watched over the last 3 years. Their first presentation was not very good. And then they got organized and they got organized and they got organized and they've done wonders there. So I'm more than happy to support them.
Well, and it's also like just informal play, just anyone, you can just, oh, let's go and do this and drop in with your and play. And so that's great. Okay, so we'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. That's just fantastic. I'll find it. The name of that jumped out at me. It's bugging me now. Okay,
Your worship,
yes,
page 282 refers to it as gorgeous Miami colors.
that's right. The Miami blue, that's where it was. And it is gorgeous. Well done, Pickleball. Okay, so the next up, thank you, Ms. Temple, is the South Island Performing Arts Society has an ask for $7,000. This is funding for the Sooke Music Festival on September 3rd and dance classes once per week. Councillor Lajeunesse?
Yeah, I'll move that we fund the full amount. I think,
Okay, move it and name the source, then we'll get a seconder and then you can motivate.
from the Community Grants Fund.
Okay, do we have a seconder? I will second that. Go ahead, Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, their presentation was excellent and I love the work that they're doing and I think that we should be supporting them. They're a startup group and they have boundless energy, it seems, and I think they're on a good path.
Excellent. I'll just comment that I remember years ago when I first got on, there was a different group and it was a dance group and we funded costumes. And I remember this because the committee was a bit on the fence about it, but we figured we'll take a chance on dance. And then meanwhile, they were touring all over Europe. They were a highlight in Budapest. They've been invited back for a chocolate festival. So the former mayor of this town came with his family to visit me just because the impression and to invite us back with this group. And I was blown away. It's a different makeup, but art takes all forms. And that's where, it's a group that seems to be starting up, wanting to do something new. So I'm with you. Councillor Logans.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this group, but I'm not happy to support a $7,000 ask. That would basically make us like 50% business partners. And for someone who's never come to us with grant application before, never provided us a report before, someone who's newer organization, it makes me a bit uncomfortable to give such a large amount of money. So I'll vote against this, but if we wanted to do a lower amount, I would support it.
Comments, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I'm along the same lines. I've written some in here, but I don't think I'd go for the full 7,000, but I'd be okay with 5,000.
Would you like to make an amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment that we change it from 7,000 to 5,000. Again, they're a new organization, but it shows support, but
Okay, let's get a seconder for the amendment. Seconded by Councillor McMath. So go ahead, keep motivating on the amendment of 5,000.
no, that's good. I'm happy with the 5K and I think that's shows our intent and again, it's I think it's a good amount.
Councillor McMath, any comments? No. Okay, counts on the amendment.
Yeah, just as Ms. Scholes told us last week, that they really need rent covered at $2,400, insurance at $700, and their PAs, I think she said PA system, digital piano, which is $3,000. So 5,000 is quite a generous first year, and we welcome you back next year.
Excellent. So I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? That's unanimous. Thank you. So now on the main amended motion, which would be the amount of $5,000 from the community grant program. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item up next is the Steps to the Future Childcare Society has an ask of $7,000. Funding for spring break and summer programs, but I think with clarity, they said that it was more for the Pro-D days and for summer, because spring break is already completed. Counselor Logans, go ahead.
Yeah, when we spoke to them, we discussed a few things that wouldn't be covered and they seemed agreeable upon it and we're grateful for any support we could give. When we include for the programs that are still to take place and have not already taken place, there would be about $500 in snacks, 2,000 for field trips, 2,000 for the garden, 1,000 for art supplies. And that comes up to $5,500. So I'll move that we support for 5,500
55,
from community grant funding.
okay, 5,500 from community grants, from
Um,
seconded by Counselor
I'd like
Bettis.
to go from COVID on that one if possible.
I find that community grants, just it's some specific. I'm a bit stuck on that one. Go ahead, Counselor Logans.
I did make a note now, I'm reading through my scribbles, but I agree with Counselor Beddoes because I did make a note that COVID did reduce their participation, which would have brought in a lot more money from fees last year. So that impacted them. I wouldn't have thought that it would have, but they did mention that that was an impact. So I'm not opposed to that.
Okay, so from COVID, okay. Counselor Bateman,
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Councillor Logans. They have 26 registered students, 55 spaces. So that is a major hit.
yeah, it's a weird one with childcare because and it may also be just finding qualified instructors is also a hindrance to a lot of centers expanding, is getting the licensed. And then a lot of people are licensed because like everywhere else, there's a labor shortage. We don't know where everybody went, but they're certainly not all going somewhere. And then also with the disruptions to school and, for some parents, they did cancel out on childcare because then you need to keep your child at home to self-isolate because of symptoms and everything. And then you're giving notice. So I can totally see that, although we do have a major childcare shortage. So as I think they just need to push it out that they have programming space available because every other center for September sold out in February. And they're not even able to, many are serving existing families. They're not even able to advertise outwards to the community because every spot they have is taken. So the fact that they do have spaces both for the summer, they need to get that information out. Okay, anything from anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Next is Take a Hike Foundation. So this is a $5,000 funding will support a no-charge nature-based program for vulnerable youth in Sooke. Councillor Logans is moving the 5,000.
5,000 from community grant.
5,000 from community grants, seconded by Councillor Bateman. It's funny how the word take a hike. Someone said that to me the other day, but it wasn't a protest comment, I think. Okay, so 5,000 from community grants. Any comments from anyone else? It's great to see this program starting. It seems that it's about to start up. I read something about it, I think in a Mirror article. So anything we can do to get, maybe that's where it was, just to connect youth with our wild spaces, I think is lovely. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Arguably, this could go under COVID. This is a youth at risk program with 4 staff, 20 students, all grades 10 to 12, who have experienced trauma, mental health and wellness conditions, addiction and attachment issues. However, it looks like there's 30,000 still in that community grant budget. So.
I think that's a valid point, Councillor Bateman. I think COVID has exacerbated all of that. However, I do think that it's still COVID or not, it's an ongoing need in our community regardless, really. Counselor Logan's?
Yeah, this program has been expanding since I heard about it 7 or 8 years ago, at least. I don't think this is COVID related, that it's coming to Sooke or that it's happening here. It's just an expansion of the program. So it's a fantastic opportunity for us to have it in Sooke. I'm really glad it's coming here, but I'm happy to fund it out a community grant.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Counselor Lajeunesse?
Is there a rule that says we can't split it between the two accounts? Take some from COVID and some from the other account? Okay.
You could. I love your creative thought program around this. It's been moved and seconded for 5,000 from community grants. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The next up is the Victoria Brain Injury Society in the amount of $5,000. So this is where they go and do outreach into the schools, I believe I heard, EMCS and Journey Middle School. And then there was some questions around covering off our schools, but ours is the only one that's like SD's, all of SD 62, but only Sooke is stepping up to the plate here. Did I hear that right? Go ahead, Counselor Williams.
It is for all of school district 62, but the district of Sooke was the only municipality out of Highlands, Colwood, Langford, Machosen, and Sooke that they asked for funding. So that's a bit strange to me. Yeah, I have more thoughts, but I'll leave them for later.
All right, is anyone prepared to make a motion? Different amount?
I'll make a motion for $1,000.
So $1,000 from Counselor Beddoes from community grants.
Yeah.
Okay, seconded by Counselor Logan's. Discussion?
Yeah, as the motivator, I have a lot of problems with this. I mean, when they came and presented, they weren't even sure if they made a presentation last year. And then it was vaguely, they might have maybe, I never really was sure whether they did. And my first impression when they were dealing with this program is they actually dealt with people with brain injuries, but it's basically just a lecture circuit to go to the schools and explain what brain injuries are and things like that. So I have a lot of problems with it. Whether to fund it at all, I put it $1,000 to get it on the table for discussion, but it's a lecturing circuit, and basically, you know, it's just find somebody with some wages to do some lecturing now. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I thought it was a much different program when we dealt with it last time, and wages and benefits, 59,000, program cost 3,000, rent 2,700, and that's for all of it. So we can't do wages. So I mean, they're only looking at about $6,500 there, and from Sooke, when it's all for the whole area. So I have a hard time with that. $1,000 is the best that I would be willing to do.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Logan's?
Yeah, I second for discussion. I am happy not to support an amount either for this, to be honest. It's a little strange that if they're going to round to the school district or throughout the school district, that there would be rent fees. That should be something in kind. How come that is not? Yeah, and if it's, it doesn't quite add up for me. And why is the district, or why is the school district not included in as an in-kind or a revenue source at all? It almost seems like they haven't quite done their due diligence and spoken with the school district to have this confirmed yet. That's my suspicion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's wonderful that the outreach is happening for sure. I think it just comes down to just to the items identified by members of council. And I'm fine with the $1,000. So there needs to be strong evidence in the final report that that energy was put into our local schools, whether that's, and there's two, there's Journey and EMCS. And that's it, right? Because I think going any younger than that in elementary school, it's not the right, it needs to be a bit of an older group, so. Counselor Bateman.
Yeah, I'll just note that this is an organization with a number of programs, like the money they got last year was to, they supported 73 clients in Sooke with a variety of education, work, social, and community activities. So, but this time it is definitely, I believe, a presentation within the schools.
Yeah.
So, and I note in their financial statement, they got money from the city of Victoria. But yeah, I'm curious as to why they've not approached our other school district 62 municipalities.
All right, well, call the question then, see what happens. All those in favor? Opposed? Counselor Logans and McMath are opposed, so the motion carries at 1,000. Okay, so then that brings us to the Caravan Stage Company. Let me just find this here. So their ask was for $6,800. They received $6,000 in 2018. And it's the Ship Theater. So it is the final year of their production. They started, as you know, with the Stagecoach. I have talked to a few folks that remember that actually. Back when it was a Stagecoach, it was a traveling puppet show some 50 years ago, 52, I believe. And then they transformed it into the sailing vessel, and it was an amazing performance. So I appreciate the rationale that it is a late application. However, it does connect our residents to the ocean. It's a fantastic display off the government board. And so drawing residents down there, I think was great. Hopefully Transition Sooke can provide the show host, like they were hosts. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, just sort of guiding folks here and there and helping with seating and those sorts of things. And then the event, so bring a blanket. And after this, I think they're that will be it. It'll be a wrap. They'll do this and then that's the end of their production. It's a lot. They're pulling in people from all over the world, and then passports and traveling and customs going from one country to another. Like there's a lot of documentation needed to do that. It hasn't been easy with COVID for sure. So look for a motion. That's my piece. It was beautiful. Councillor Beddoes.
I would make a motion that we send them to
$3,400. There's seconded from Councillor Logans. Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes, to motivate.
Unfortunately, again, I did the addition on most of their things are wages and per diems and things like that. And I added up what isn't, and it came to $3,400. That's why I made that motion.
Anything from Councillor Logans? No, anything from anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
I'll just say, I raised the matter of those portaloos, right? The lack of portaloo. There was one portaloo, and he noted, the applicant, that he has a contract in kind with GFL, and I didn't see that on the report, on their financial report. So
that may have been just a late addendum that they added,
Right.
you know, because information
After the
in the
fact, yes.
presentations often is
Yeah.
what is presented to us. And
Yeah.
it's good that they did secure that. GFL does do a lot of business locally. I think he said they're willing to fund Victoria, and for Sooke, they're providing them. So that's good. Yeah. Uh-oh, we'll talk about that later. Ms. Temple?
Can we clarify the funding source before you call the question? Is it community grants?
Community grants,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's unanimous. So does that completes our deliberations? And so we've funded, was there a follow-up one? There was one that was defeated,
We could
but
do new business arising for Fed.
right, for Fed was because the amount for that request had failed. So I'll just check. Thank you for that, Councillor McMath. Did anyone want to make a follow-up, a business arising motion in a different amount?
I would,
Okay, go ahead.
for $1,000. It's in line with what a lot of the other municipalities are contributing.
Okay, so 1,000 from the community grant
Yes,
program?
please. Yeah.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Thank you for that research. And any $1,000 to Fed? Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That's unanimous. So we'll add $1,000 in for Fed. Was there anything else for any of the applications? I don't think so. The otherwise, they were all either fully funded or mostly funded. Is that a reasonable synopsis? Yes, Councillor McMahon?
I just have a question because with the COVID funds, we've given basically $42,000. So what is the dialogue looking like with these groups? Because this money is not going to exist forever. And so I find that we are quite generous because we have such a significant amount in that account. And so what is our communication with these groups going forward? Because it's going to peter off. And then also, if it comes from the COVID fund, are we still putting the 3-year max cap on it?
I think the 3-year should remain because it's regardless of the funding source. I mean, in some years you could see Ms. Temple added council contingency because even in years past, we accessed contingency for some in the absence of COVID relief. But you are right, because eventually there's rationale to support it being a COVID impact. But as things more ease or more open up, and we're living with COVID, has sort of been the mandate now, is that we're living with it. That sort of fallback is going to be hard to justify. So I think it's the case of it comes into the strength of the application. I think my challenge always is when we provide an application form and everyone writes "see attached," and then they send us 50 pages of other material. Like, a lot of it is you have to fill out the form, there has to be consistency. Like, you need to take the time and effort to fill out the form. And then present, answer the questions, provide the follow-up, because at the end of the day, council will need to just make decisions on what has arrived in front of us. And so for us to do external work, which really should be on the application, but that's always been the ongoing challenge. And sometimes the ask is almost just matched. So there's been times where some things have gone over, and then it's always clarity around the policy itself. And some years council has removed it completely, and it's subject to council. So the next council's will would be, it'll come forward, here's where the community grants is, but the council of the day could say, no, we're not doing that. Because that has been the case, is 1% of taxes is going towards this program, and we're not going to have the program at all. And then there's nothing at all for groups. Councillor Beddoes.
Just in my estimation, doing this now for I guess this is their 3rd time at it, they've gotten a lot better. I think the public understands that we ask a lot of questions, and a lot of them this time were prepared. And they also were aware of COVID too. So I thought most of them came here very well prepared. A couple didn't, and we sort of pointed them out. So the message is getting out there, but I do agree that staff, when they send the check, is that should be a note with it that this is from the COVID relief fund, which may end, something to that.
Well, council can take that entire relief fund and use it for other purposes, and then it's gone entirely. It just so happens that we're being, I think, just frugal with it because of the uncertainty around everything. And so it should be, because, what if we have to just anything where we need to now fall back, and the province would say, hey, you had these funds to prepare you for these sorts of things. So we're not out of it, and we're still coming to terms with it. Councillor McMahon.
And then just on that note, because of the funding request that we put into COVID, we have 24,000 remaining. So should we pull some of these applications and put them back into the community grant funding to preserve the COVID relief fund?
That would be another contemplation, but I'll ask Mr. Curry on that.
My suggestion would be to fund what you have from COVID relief funds, and with the 24,000 remaining under the community grant program, you'll have the opportunity to either reallocate those by council resolution at any time of the year, or they could be, we could present some other suggestions to use those funds. Essentially, they would, if they were unspent at the end of the year, they become unrestricted surplus. So they kind of have, they wouldn't have any rules or regulation to use them if they weren't used, where if you don't use the COVID, if you use the COVID relief funds, there's more restrictions, and this is quite applicable to use this funding. So I would recommend leaving it as you've funded them today.
So another option, like, could council then just, we could resolve that we move that into council contingency?
Yes, absolutely.
Would councillor be prepared to move that council directs staff to shift the remaining balance into council
I'll make
contingency?
that motion.
Okay, moved by councillor Beddoes and seconded by councillor McMath. Okay, any comments?
No, that was good advice. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and then it's there, so we can just see what emerges in the time remaining in this term, or it's there for a few months for whoever's incoming. Okay, so I'll call the question on that. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. And I believe that concludes our, go ahead, Councillor Bean.
In terms of line item funding, is it up to whoever's sitting in these seats come budget time to raise the possibilities, or do we do that?
Well, you can make a resolution. I suppose you could do that. You know, now you could say that council consider, I wouldn't want to imprint it though, that council consider these items as line items. Potentially, you could consider doing that, and then at least it's bookmarked. Or Mr. Curry, he's better advice.
Yes, Madam Chair, I did want to mention that we are planning to review the line items with the budget process in the fall, and you'll have a chance to take a look at what's currently there. And we're going to make some recommendations as far as what should be service agreements versus line items, and perhaps at the same time add some clarification to the policy, just so that it is more clear when we're dealing with the three different items.
Okay, so it's coming to us, so I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then I did get asked why well, although no member of the public is in the gallery tonight, the meeting is open to the public. It is webcast and it's virtual. So I have been asked sort of why do we do this in such an open forum when typically funding organizations are like, you're very removed from it. You get a letter that basically says yes or no. And it's basically, it's part of the budget cycle, this local government. So there is no provision to go in camera on this. It doesn't fit any of the criteria. So that's kind of the awkward part of it all, which is why just getting clarity around the policy is really important. So that's all very, it removes that gray area that, but there is no provision to do that. And I think this is where some other municipalities have just abandoned their grant programs altogether because of that nature of it. But we're close to the people and we're doing our work. So thank you, everyone. Okay, so on that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Councillor Logans, for chairing that meeting. Thank you to all the staff for their preparations and council for your thoughtful deliberations, and to all the work being done by our community grants organizations. There's so much happening in the community. It's really exciting, and just the dedication that you see. And what I just love is just seeing how these programs emerge, and then eventually many become independent, which is kind of what you want, is to see them get to that point. And it's quite likely, had COVID not thrown a wrench in everything for 2 years, that some of them would have been in that position with just ongoing and building up that momentum. But it's hard to, we'll see how it goes.
It's just on that, I'm wondering if in the future, if something we could add to the application form is strategy for sustainability for some of these outfits so that.
We're on
um,
adjournment, Counselor. I was just making. some
Yeah,
changes.
no,
But yeah, that's a
I
good
wanted
point.
to
So
make
it's a
that comment
takeaway
too.
for you to contemplate for sure. Okay, all those in favor of adjournment? And that's unanimous. Thank you.